Hello, BookTube. I'm here to talk about the next novel in the Hornblower Saga, which is the third one, Hornblower and the Hotspur. And I've read it in this Taddy Omnibus edition. It was written in 1962. It's the third chronologically. And yeah, it's basically the where war starts again 1803 and goes up to 1804. I think it stops in 1804, I guess, sometime in 1804. And we start out with Hornblower getting married to Maria, who was in the previous novel, the daughter of the landlady that where he was staying when he was sort of on a half pay after the peace of Amiens with Bush. However, if I think there's an inconsistency here. I briefly looked, and I just don't have the patience to read through. I'm sure they said that the war was actually declared before the end of the previous one, and he hadn't actually been assigned a ship yet. In this one, he's assigned a ship, a Hotspur, a sloop, with Bush as his number one. But at the beginning, after he gets married, he is able to have a bit of a honeymoon, thanks to the commander in chief uh, of the Channel forces, uh, Admiral Cornwallis, and he's sent on a mission to sort of reconnoiter in some ways and see if he can get some information from and buy information possibly from the French fishermen. And he does this, but then while he's there, while he's reconnoitering at the port of Brest in France, the war is broken out, and he's almost captured, but he escapes. So he's and I think that's a bit of an inconsistency. But anyway, the bulk of the novel is him and the ship and the men, the issues that there are with the men, cowardice, desertion, death because through battle. But it's them being part of the blockade to keep the French um, hemmed in at Brest. Uh, but there also is the potential at some point for a prize through the Spanish to capture a bullion gold shipment. But they're not at war with Spain, so it backfires that there really isn't anything. But um, in either case, Hornblower decides to, because there was a frigate that sort of is left Brest, and he engages it, and that's where there's a lot of damage to the ship, and many seamen are killed. So he misses that the potentiality of getting a prize, but it turns out there wouldn't have been a prize anyway, even if he didn't do that. But Admiral Cornwallis retires at the end, but because he's retiring, he gets to grant some promotions, and he promotes, even though in fact Hornblower, being a commander, is basically the captain of the ship, but he's not captain in rank. He's below the captain in rank. So Cornwallis, one of his last things is his duties is to promote him to full captainship. Captainship, is that right? Well, captain. To captain, that's where it ends. But also too, and New Year's Day, basically, of 1804, there's little baby Horatio. A son is born, and and yeah, it ends basically with his promotion and uh, wedded bliss in some ways, domestic bliss to a certain extent, and Bush is still there. Um, it was fun. There was some really I really did like the scenes where he was playing cat and mouse at times at Brest, and then when they were trying to stop the Felicity, I think it is the French ship that was coming out um, to stop the sort of taking of. Oh no, was it a? Yeah, I think it was a French ship. Yeah, because sorry, it didn't come out of Brest. It was the Cadiz. But anyway, there was some really good parts in there. But this was written in 1860. No, sorry, 1962. Lieutenant Hornblower was written in 1952, so a decade earlier. Now that's where uh, uh, Bush was introduced, and they became really good friends. But well, I'll hold off for a second with that thought. Um, and we see the friendship growing and the admiration for each, and especially Bush's admiration for Horatio. And they're very comfortable with each other even before the end of the war, the Peace of Amiens, where they got together in London. There was still comfort and an easygoingness between the two while they were on ship, especially when they were at uh, Santo Domingo, and doing the taking over the ships and the forts there, and well, silencing the forts. Also, another good part, yeah, that was another one where they do a land excursion and at some French batteries to destroy them, to weaken the French. So those were really good parts. But yeah, now back to Bush in here. In this one, the with the Hotspur, it's as if they're back at the beginning of their relationship. The way they talk, I know it has to be formal to a certain extent, especially in front of the other men. But there's no scenes or hardly any scenes, and even the scenes that are very brief, that they're not in front of the men, they still seem too tight with each other. They're too not. I mean, in the sense that they're not loose. They're not friendly at all. And even at the end, where he comes to see him and congratulate him on, being captain and all this kind of thing, and seeing the baby, it's they're not free with each other. They're not as friendly as they were. And the fact that there's the inconsistency of the war that was started at the end of the previous book but not started at the beginning of this book, so it doesn't flow very well, but that's okay. I can accept that kind of thing, but the relationship was kind of difficult, and the dialogue between his wife Maria and him was so stilted. It was unreal. I know it was supposed to be kind of stilted, because he doesn't feel comfortable actually being married, and he says he has to consciously keep her in mind, in upmost in mind when they're together. So I can see that, but it's just it was too stilted. It just didn't work for me. Like, even so, it was like, it would stand out if people did have that kind of talk and relationship, and people would notice it, and she would notice it for sure. Like, it just was, and he would notice her responses, and back and forth. It just, yeah, it just didn't work for this. But with regards to Bush, well, I can maybe stretch to a certain extent that, you see, the Lieutenant Hornblower was through Bush's eyes, in a sense. So he's going to embellish a little different, and then this one is sort of more maybe more real, but it still didn't seem right. It didn't seem right. Like there was too much disparity between the two types of relationship between them. So this one, yeah, this one was for me. I enjoyed scenes in it, but that was it. It was like, there, especially the dialogue between him and his wife were eye rolling. To be honest, like it was like it wasn't that well thought out there, and it should have been worked a little more, I think. Um, but yeah, so anyway, on to the next one, and I have the second omnibus, Captain Hornblower, RN, Royal Navy. And the next one in here is Hornblower and the Atropos. But there was an unfinished novel that he did when he died, I think in 1965 or 66, called Hornblower and the Crisis, I think it is. That I'm gonna have to see if I'll get. I'm not sure if we're all reading that in this order, but I'm gonna see if I can get that one and read it. And if we are, if the stated one is Hornblower and the Atropos, then I'll read both for the month. But I just have to find a really cheap copy of it, because new copy costs more than all three of these used, battered reading copies of all 10. Is it 10? Yeah, 10 novels. So I'll have to see if I can find another cheap reading copy for this. It's too bad it wasn't in here, but oh well, because it could have fit in here. Because this is shorter. It's only five. It's about 100, and I think the Crisis one with a few extra stories was under 200 pages, so it could have easily fit in here. But anyway, there is Hornblower, and it's all aye aye, sir, all the way through. It's just that line was repeated over and over. Hence the title of the video, Aye Aye, Sir. Thank you, BookTube.